Variety tweeted this out. This was November 3rd, 2024, so 2 days ago. At 11:22 a.m., they tweeted, "To celebrate Godzilla Day and the franchise's 70th anniversary, check out Variety's ranking of 34 Godzilla movies from worst to best." And this was their ranking. Now, people were not happy with this ranking. A lot of people assumed that this was written by ChatGPT, allegedly, or they assumed that it was, just random movies thrown in with, -1 and Godzilla 54 up top and Godzilla's Revenge at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this entire list and sort of judge it as a fan. I'm assuming that the person that wrote this may not be the biggest fan in the world. That's okay. But I'm more or less judging this based on their rankings and what they had to say about each movie. So I'm not going to read all this stuff just because I'm sure it's basic, So, first one, All Monsters Attack from 1969. The atrocious 10th film in the series focuses on a bullied boy who escapes from his depressed existence by dreaming that he and Godzilla's moronic son Minya are playmates on Monster Island. Although helmed by visionary filmmaker Ishiro Honda, who directed many of the best Godzilla films, All Monsters Attack, or Godzilla's Revenge, is widely regarded as the worst of the worst, and for good reason. So they kind of go over the budget, how low the budget was, how there's so much stock footage littered throughout this entire movie, and that's all fair. They even talk about how the American version has Minya talking in that weird, deep voice.
Godzilla says that I should learn to fight my own battles,
It makes no sense whatsoever, so I will give it to them. W take. Yes, this is the worst. I'm assuming they won't be talking about the animated stuff. So I'm not seeing it. Yeah, I don't see any of the anime stuff, so I'm assuming this is just live action. Up next is Godzilla vs. Megalon, which I kind of get why it's ranked this low, but we'll kind of skim through. So they do a quick kind of like snarky plot summary, and then they say, they talk about Godzilla and Jet Jaguar. Visually speaking, this unlucky 13th film in the franchise is a drab and gloomy affair and features some of the dullest monster fighting in the entire series. Much of the blame can be placed on Megalon, who emerges as one of the least characteristic enemies in Godzilla history. Now, here's my issue with this, is they said it's dull. Right? Dull. How can you watch this and say that it is dull? I genuinely don't understand. So to say it's the dullest in terms of monster fighting is wrong. It's completely objectively wrong when one of the most memed moments in the entire franchise is in that movie. Again, I'm saying objectively here because that is more memorable, I would argue, than most scenes from any other Godzilla movie. People think of that when they think of Godzilla. Up next, we've got Son of Godzilla at number 33. Really, really low. I'm shocked, actually. So, a lot of this is saying that Minya's dopey, that it's lackluster in all aspects, and that Jun Fukuda, the man responsible for some of the silliest and sloppiest movies in the franchise, portrays Godzilla as a callous and abusive father to his disappointing son, whose creature costume resembles a moldy-looking Pillsbury doughboy. Harsh, but partially fair. My biggest gripe, though, is that Son of Godzilla has a ton of heart. That ending where Godzilla and Minya are holding each other, in the snow as it cuts the credits. So good. So emotional. So well done. Yeah, I kind of get where they're coming from. I think it's valid to put it low, but not this low. Yeah. Now we've got the American Godzilla. They say that it's notoriously misguided, and that they talk about Matthew Broderick. They say that the film's humor doesn't work, the runtime is bloated, and I can imagine why it's this low. Now we've got Raids Again. I think Raids Again should be lower. Raids Again should be lower than Son of Godzilla. I think Son of Godzilla should be higher than 98. Megalon is way too low anyways. That should be probably in like the 20s, but yeah. Godzilla Raids Again. They have this tiny paragraph. Is this one sentence? It's one long run-on sentence. Okay, we'll just read it, I guess, because it's a sentence. Notable only for introducing Godzilla's dog-like adversary, Anguirus, who would go on to become one of the most beloved beasts in the series, this rushed production is marred by awkward direction, threadbare special effects, and an interminably slow and meandering second half that dispenses with monster fights in favor of pointless human drama. Fair enough. Right? I'm not the biggest fan of this movie. However, what I will say is this. I do think that the human characters work really well. I recently, in my retrospective, I said that Kobayashi is a fantastic human character. I think that his death scene is very impactful. And I just don't think that... I think that that's sort of wrong to me. Like that, objectively, it's not pointless because the human drama leads into how the film actually ends, right? That movie, whether you like it or not, it has setups and payoffs. It sets up Kobayashi as a character. You want to root for him because he's kind of like the funny side character. And he ends the movie essentially by slamming his plane into the iceberg, which causes all the snow to come down and bury Godzilla, with the military helping to kind of bury him. But I don't think it's pointless because a lot of that ends up mattering in the end. If it was pointless, none of the human drama would have a purpose and we would just be following random characters for no reason. Yeah, I do agree with you, Dylan Ring Productions. The design is fantastic though for this movie. I've talked a lot about that on the channel, how Godzilla 1955 is one of my favorites. Like, I love this slimmed down look that he's got. Like, it truly is a suit that was built for combat, monster combat. I think that a lot of this just works really, really well. I adore how this looks. I really do. I like it more than the 54 one. That might be my hot take, but I love it. Okay, this one. This is what's going to piss off Godzilla fans, I think at least. Variety ranked Godzilla 2000 at number 30. 30. Above, let me see what else they got. What are some other ones where they rank this above? Already, as I'm skimming, the fact that this is this low is horrifying to me. We're going to get into some juicy, juicy drama in a minute. But... okay, let's try to get through this without crashing out. Okay, Godzilla 2000. I don't know why this is this low. The first film of the series, newfangled Millennium era, this largely forgettable entry ignores all previous installments and functions as a direct sequel to the original movie. I don't think that's true, is it? I thought Godzilla 2000 was more standalone. Yeah, Godzilla 2000 is a standalone movie. There is no, like... It's not a sequel to Godzilla 1954 whatsoever. This is outright incorrect. That's blatant misinformation. Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, which many think is a sequel to Godzilla 54, people think that's a sequel to Godzilla 2000. It's not. It's just a sequel to 54, but even then it's like a different version of 1954. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with that, so that's wrong. Okay. Then they compare Orga to the Rancor. Okay. Yeah. They don't really give much of a reason as to why this is so bad, which I don't understand. Okay. Here we go. Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. Another immediate error here is it credits Mothra to Space Godzilla's existence, which if you've seen the movie, which I don't think these people have, then you would know that they give multiple different origins behind Space Godzilla, and this is just one of many. With Space Godzilla as a character, they say that Biollante was one of the main sort of like things that helped create the monster. But the other one was Mothra. So let me just go down here a bit. Origins. Yeah, two explanations are given. It's Biollante and Mothra. Which I get you could say, like, oh, whatever, they gave one of them. But I feel like if you're gonna do a write-up of the movie, you have to say that this is like one of the few instances where the antagonist monster was given multiple backstories, because that's very fascinating. Anyways. Although the idea of Godzilla battling an evil doppelganger is ripe with possibility, this 21st entry does little to distinguish itself and often feels like a retread of familiar moments from better movies. Okay. I agree. Partially. Here's the thing. Yes and no. I think that for the most part, and they do mention Mogira. Mogira is what makes this movie a lot better. But, yeah. Okay. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 from 1993. When scientists create a newly improved Mechagodzilla using the remains of the recently defeated Mecha King Ghidorah, they think they've finally found a way to kill Godzilla once and for all. Meanwhile, in a possible nod to Kramer vs. Kramer, Godzilla and Rodan duke it out over custody of a recently discovered baby Godzilla. Although energetically directed by Takao Okawara, this 20th Godzilla film feels a bit old hat. This 20th Godzilla film feels a bit old hat. What does that mean? Is that like a saying that I just don't... I need to look this up. Feels a bit old hat? That's a way of saying old-fashioned? I've never heard... Who wrote this? A 97-year-old? Okay. Sorry. That felt weird. That looked like a typo to me. Part of the problem is that with so many excellent Mechagodzilla movies in the series to choose from, this one doesn't seem that special. Other than Mechagodzilla's beefed up torso, which makes him look like a storied enhanced gym rat, there's not a lot that's new here. I mean, I do think this is the weakest of all the Mechagodzilla movies. I think it's the weakest design. Not saying I don't love it, but I do think it's, of the Japanese one of the lower tier ones. I agree it's not the best, but it should not be this low, I don't think. Definitely not lower than this one. This movie, it's so bad. Okay. Godzilla vs. Gigan. Although the plot isn't quite as inventive, that doesn't mean that there aren't some genuine pleasures to be had here. In particular, setting the final battle at a monster-themed amusement park, complete with a Godzilla-shaped building that fires lasers from its mouth, is a welcome touch, as are the grotesque alien cockroaches who set the absurd story in motion. No mention of Godzilla talking and Anguirus talking. No mention of the insane amount of stock footage. No mention of all the gore for what is supposed to be a kid's movie. Straight up, I don't think that this should be this high. I feel like this should be way, way, way lower. Okay, well, this should be lower too. This should be right above Godzilla's Revenge. Yeah, this is fair, I think. Less concerned with global cataclysm and world domination. This fun, I'm putting quotations and not them, fun entry in the Godzilla series works well as a standalone story. Although Ebra doesn't have many unique abilities other than being a crustacean the size of a battleship. Did they just reference the giant claw? The monster fights are invigorating and well staged, and the lush island setting provides a refreshing change of scenery from the endless urban destruction that the franchise usually focuses on. This is where I crash out. Like, straight up, this is where I crash out. Okay. Godzilla Tokyo SOS is phenomenal. This should not be that low. And let's hear the reasoning why it's this low. When Mothra's miniature fairy minions inform the Japanese government that Godzilla will continue to rain destruction upon Japan unless they destroy Mechagodzilla, the country's stubborn prime minister ignores the dire warnings, setting in motion an epic battle between all three supersized opponents. While the plot won't win any awards for originality, director Masaki Tezuka captures some seriously impressive monster fights in his 27th film in the series. Mothra fans in particular will find much to love about this installment, which frequently refers back to the giant moth's 1961 standalone film. Even Mothra's silk-shooting larvae are given a chance to shine by trapping Godzilla in an impenetrable cocoon during the climactic battle. Yeah, no, you never gave a reason as to why it's on the same level as Ebra Horror of the Deep and Godzilla 2014 is... Oh, God. This list is so bad. Okay. Godzilla Tokyo SOS has, in my opinion, some of the most intricate miniature work, some of the best suit designs, and some of the best just model work in general in any Godzilla series. The characters are fantastic. The entire Kiryu duology as a whole has just nothing but phenomenal characters littered throughout. Yeah, this should be top 10. This has no right being this low. Okay. This is where it gets bad. If it wasn't bad already, it's terrible right now. Okay. So, before I even read this, I'm going to guess they're going to say that Godzilla doesn't have enough screen time and Bryan Cranston was killed way too early in the movie and that it's boring. Those are my guesses, right? Featuring an intense performance by Bryan Cranston and a striking new creature design for the title character. True on both ends. This bold reimagining of Godzilla was a monster-sized hit for Legendary Pictures. Unfortunately, Cranston barely makes it through the film's first act. Ding. And Godzilla has even less screen time than he does. Ding. The camera work is exquisite when you can actually see it. Ding. This is like the most stereotypical complaints that I've seen about this movie. Much of the film's second half is so dimly lit and obscured by smoke and fog, it's honestly difficult to tell what's happening during the meager number of monster tussles we're given. Note to future kaiju filmmakers, the Godzilla series is not the Blair Witch Project. The audience actually has to see the on-screen action to appreciate it. This is the most like basic opinion you could have about this movie. I'm convinced they just copy and pasted the like top letterboxd review and just had that be the review. This is so boring. And also, you could talk about the sense of scale, you could talk about a lot of different things, but this is just so cliche. This is fair. 23, that's fair. Another big threat for longtime Mothra fans, this 19th entry finds Earth itself declaring war on humanity in the form of Batra, a giant black moth who's revealed to be the physical embodiment of the planet's inherent instinct for self-protection. Filled with fantastic imagery and thrilling battle scenes. Yeah, a lot of this just seems like ChatGPT to me, allegedly. So, what are they basically saying here? They don't really give any opinions. They just say Godzilla is barely in this and that Batra's cool. That's it. It's 90% plot summary and then just, oh yeah, here's a quick little opinion about it. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. The only Godzilla film to incorporate time travel into its story, this wonderfully weird 18th entry has enough plot to fill half a dozen movies. In a nutshell, the time travelers from the future arrive in the present with a warning that Godzilla will cause an apocalyptic nuclear accident in a few years, and the only way to prevent it is to travel back to World War II and stop him from being created in the first place. But that's just the tip of the narrative iceberg. In this over-the-top extravaganza, none of the film's time travel rules make sense whatsoever. That's fair, but that doesn't stop this monster mash from being outrageously entertaining. Yeah, it is fun. I think that, honestly, this is the one good opinion that they've had so far that's maybe controversial among Godzilla fans. I think this is okay. It's fine where it is here. This should be a lot lower. They call it underrated. Disagree. They just do... How long is the plot summary here? Yeah, the blue is the plot summary. That is how long they've been... Okay. Featuring a beautifully designed enemy in Megaguirus, not to mention a storyline that's surprisingly easy to follow for a change, this 24th Godzilla movie feels like a welcome return to the early days of the series. I guess, if you want to look at it that way, but on the other hand, it just kind of like... I don't see how you could rank it this high unless you're just like a really big fan of it. But to me, at least, I don't know. That's not the right picture. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. That's not the right... Not to get too like wrapped up in this, but like this is what he looks like in that movie. This is what he looks like here. Not to be confused with the similarly titled Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, this 27th entry plays like a trial run for Guillermo del Toro's Pacific Rim, with a human-piloted robot battling a flesh and blood monster for control of the Earth. As the lead pilot who operates the newly designed... Okay, this is just... Alright, well, she does deliver a very, very phenomenal performance. I will give them that. And it sucks that she's barely in Tokyo SOS. I get it. That's 100% true. It is cool, too, that, they have callbacks to Mothra, War of the Gargantuas. Okay, this seems negative, but why is it ranked at 20? This movie is like a top 10 Godzilla movie, easily. This should be higher up, too. This one's fantastic. A much-needed course correction after the anemic action of the first MonsterVerse movie. I don't like that wording. That doesn't make sense. Why would it be a course correction? Okay. So, the majority of the monster scenes are once again annoyingly obscured by torrential rainstorms and typhoon-level sea surges. The film is an improvement on the previous entry in almost every way. That I agree with that last part, that it is an improvement. Each of the newly designed monsters is given at least one show-stopping moment, making the movie a treat for long-time Godzilla disciples. But the fact that it's ranked under this shocks me. It really does. Because this movie is like bottom 30, maybe like mid-20s. Although Godzilla's name comes first in the title, the focus is almost entirely on Kong's journey in the MonsterVerse entry. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this has to do with, I'm assuming, Godzilla's lack of screen time. I like that they talk about the scale, because that is a problem that I have with the movie too. But yeah, this should not be at 18. Yeah, it should be around 25. I agree with you. Yeah, 18 is way too high. This is okay. I'm okay with this being at 17. It maybe should be a bit higher, but that's okay. But to say it's so bad it's good, I disagree. I think there's a lot that you can get out of this movie. That isn't just, funny monster effects. Destroy all monsters, yeah, it's kind of at that halfway point for me as well. A lot of fans overrate this one just because of all the monsters that appear in it, but a lot of them don't need to be in the movie. So I think if you cut them out, people would kind of consider this to be lower, which I think it's about, 16, 15. Anyways, GMK is way too low. I'm actually curious to see what their top 10 is, because this is ridiculous. Often referred to simply as GMK, this endearing homage to classic Godzilla movies of the past is a fine entry point for new viewers. I agree entirely. This is a great entry point for any new fan that wants to really get into Godzilla but doesn't really know where to start, at least with the Japanese movies. Yeah. I don't think there's anything really negative in here, though, which is why I don't... Okay. This is ranked pretty high. I appreciate that. This one's very underrated. Yeah, I don't have any issue with that. Final Wars, okay. I'd say Final Wars for me personally is top 5, but, at least it's not in the bottom, but... Yeah, they talk about, how it kind of ripped off the Matrix here and there, and how Gigan and King Caesar get upgrades. Yeah. This is a bit high. I'd probably lower this down to about 18. Yeah, it's, to me, what kind of brings this down is just the fact that there's so much of that, like, comedic stuff that humanizes Godzilla, and it's like, I don't like that. It's the one thing I can't stand. This is in my, like, top 3. My top 3 is -1, 54, and Smog Monster. Those are my top 3 for sure. So I'm glad that it's up here, because this is a movie that deserves way more appreciation. It's super experimental, very trippy. It works with what it's trying to do in making a weird Smog Monster as the antagonist. It's the most insane Godzilla movie ever made, and I adore it. It's incredible. This is too high. I think. Yeah, it has that kind of disaster movie feel to it, but for me, it's like, I don't know. I would probably put this at like maybe 20, maybe 15, but yeah, I mean, they praise the redesigned head, but to me, dude, it's so derpy looking. Are you kidding me? I mean, come on, guys. You can't say that this is breathtaking. This is far from breathtaking. Even the toys don't look that good. I mean, come on. Way too high. This should be in like the bottom, probably like in the like 20, 24, maybe 23. This is way too high. Yeah, a lot of just kind of praising it for, being globetrotting and being colorful and very sort of like, oh well, this is good. I like that this is at 8. I'm cool with this. This is an underrated one. Terror of Mechagodzilla might be higher now. I'm actually kind of surprised. That's the one that kind of goes underrated. Yep. I'm happy with that. Shin at 5, I'm cool with that. That's okay. Yeah, they go over the history of it. This stuff is not that bad. Yeah, that's fine. That's fair. -1 at 2, and then, 54 at 1. I have no problem with any of these. I think that for the most part, the top parts of the list are fine. It's the bottom parts of the list that are... It's ones like having this at 25 and this at 24 that makes me think that an AI put this entire thing together. Yeah, whoever wrote this, Probably just looked at a general list others made and then went off that because you can't even get the pictures right. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Why did y'all ask someone who hates Godzilla movies to write an article about Godzilla movies? I read about halfway through before getting so sick of the author's transparent contempt for the subject that I closed the window. Worst Godzilla ranking list ever. Yeah, they completely messed up that picture.